Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. If you're watching on YouTube and you want to find out more information, you can go to officehours.global. We generally have a general discussion here. First hour is whatever people ask questions about. So it can be about media, virtual production, general opened Q&A. The second hour is usually something we want to spend a little more time on. Now, yesterday we had the Ruthless Reviews. And it appears it got taken down. So I'm working on getting the record up. I don't know. I don't think it got taken down. I think that YouTube just had some kind of connection failure. So I don't think we did anything that would get us in trouble. So anyway, so we're going to get that up soon, but it was a great Ruthless Review. And then today we're going to talk, it's like part 2 for some of us. We're going to show what our kit looks like, show what it actually, what it looks simple this way, but doesn't look simple that way. So we'll show you where we're at, and it's a constantly moving target. So we'll show you how that works. And tomorrow we've got Laura Thompson, our own Laura Thompson. She's going to talk about accessibility. Really excited why it's important and what to think about. And so she has been working on it. So I think that's going to be a great second hour tomorrow, Friday, and then Saturday is the long day. Start off with education. Remember, we don't stream that one. That's at 8 o'clock. I'm going to be talking about MetaHumans at 10 and just really how I approach MetaHuman creation. And then at 12, Damayanti Gajar is going to be back, and we're going to be cooking with her. And so, the recipe is up. So check it out, and we'll go from there. All right, let's jump into the questions, Bill.
Good morning, Alex. Guy Cochran has our first one here from the panel in Seattle. And how was Tony's show produced, quote, in the cloud?
Go ahead, Jonas.
So I actually have a graphic for that. We basically had 2 Zoom rooms in the cloud. One of them we pinned 3 people over NDI. So we had Tony, Talalog, and Todd pinned over NDI, and then we also pulled in over NDI an active speaker, and we pulled in a gallery feed. That all then went into a vMix instance where we cut it. In that vMix instance, we then output 1 into another vMix instance for encode. So for whatever reason, our production machine can crash and the stream doesn't go down, I can just cut to a holding music and a slide. And we also had a back channel into the Zoom room, and then a small VPN server to connect from my tablets to the Zoom room instances. This is what it ended up looking. Get a 2 up with the pins, a 3 up, and at the end, Tony full.
That's great. Go ahead, Leo.
It was amazing. It really looked really good. Looked super sharp on YouTube. I didn't actually watch it in Zoom, but I watched it on YouTube, and it's just considering the guys were talking about it, they just decided to do it not that long ago. The galleries look great. The 2 ups look great. The 3 ups look great. And it just did everything you wanted it to do in such a short time. Well done, you.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I was in the back end and I'm watching on YouTube, and they were going back and forth. They were doing a great job. Only, one main mishap with the audio that was squelched really quick. It was just basically a double audio that went through. Other than that, yeah, everything looked and sounded great, and I can't wait for them to produce one of my shows.
Go ahead, George.
That was in the back end also, but what I was mostly stoked about is watching it on the Apple TV, and I don't know, it seems like the Apple TV YouTube app is getting better and better over time. It was just really crisp and really looked good on the Apple TV end.
That's great. Courtney?
Sorry for my ignorance on AWS, but when you said there was a second instance of vMix, was that on a separate AWS server instance, or was it running on the same machine?
It was a separate virtual instance on AWS. In theory, it could have been on the same AWS host because multiple virtual machines are on one host, but it's more likely if it's not been.
Next question. Oh, go ahead, Chris, before we jump in.
I was just going to say, you guys should figure out a price for doing this. That's how businesses are formed.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and I think that a lot of people are forming businesses within the group and looking at it and figuring these things out. The main thing is that my recommendation from that is to do a couple more and bring out the system. But as you do it, think about how many people does it really take? What is it actually? You want to be thinking about the hours that it takes, the preparation that it takes. How do you systematize it? But you're absolutely right. I mean, this is a business, and this is I think that as we move past the turnkey solutions and into something that you can really customize. I think that, like, for instance, I think StreamYard is great, but I think it's limited to what they give you, and what this does is gives you kind of almost unlimited possibilities, and so as we start to go down this path and be able to create really creative shows, people are going to start thinking about digital first events very differently, and that's what's important, is that we get past, the kind of Zoom webinar and even get past the StreamYard limitations and get to where, hey, I can build any kind of show I want. And if we can, as we figure that out, I think that we end up people will get more excited about it. So it's one of those things that, and by the way, if you guys want to do a second hour on this and break it all down and talk about it all, just ping me and we'll schedule it, because I would love to, the more of us that are doing it, this is one of those things, like, it's not something you want to, and it hasn't been. Everyone's been showing how they're doing it and talking about it. But the temptation when you figure out how to do this is, I'm not going to tell anyone how to do this because this is good business for me. But what we need is, there is so much work to be done if we figure it out, if other people see other people doing it. You have to have lots of people doing it where they go, oh, I feel safe now. I understand what they mean. I understand what this looks like. There's another big company that used it. That starts to generate something that, will, I think, burn up a lot of what we do today. So what everyone's working on is really exciting. Go ahead, Leo.
Yeah, I think the thing that to me was the most critical about this is it was in the cloud, and that we are looking at it and going, if you had proposed this a year ago, if you were building something a year and a half ago, you would say, I'll build it on the boxes that I have. Building this using vMix in the cloud, and the fact, as Jonas was saying, he's got 2 different vMix boxes. He doesn't need 2 vMix boxes. He could have done it all on one vMix box, but the reason he's doing it is because the convenience of being able to pipe it from one to another, so that you have a downstream that, just in case something happens, I can literally fire up and put a holding slide on. It just takes all of the pressure, and that you could, if you wanted a 3rd, a 4th, a 5th, a 9th vMix box somewhere else, he can just fire them up and run 17 shows this weekend and no shows next weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. George?
So it definitely deserves a breakdown. I think what they're not telling you is that the person that switched the show was in Trinidad, and the person that was pushing all the graphics was in London. And we talk about it on the cloud portion of Discord all the time, but it was good to see in real time everything being changed on S3 and graphics being updated in minutes before and being pushed. So it definitely deserves a breakdown in a second hour.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Aaron.
One of the sort of beautiful things about how this all came together, at least from my point of view, I was just on the panel, but it started with Guy bringing Chirag into after hours and saying, hey, he figured out this cool thing. And then, Jonas and Greg and everybody else and Marcus kind of all saying, hey, let's do this for Tony's show and blah, blah, blah. And so it all formed in after hours very quickly, like within, a couple hours. And then they figured it out. And it was brilliant. It was just showed the power of this team of people.
That's why I built it. I mean, like this is why we started it, was that you get it takes a long time to get everybody to gel together and everything else. But, getting everyone thinking about it all together is exactly why Office Hours is here, is that, all of us is a lot smarter than any one of us. And I don't think we would have figured it out without each other, and without us getting together and doing all these things. But it just takes a long time, to get all that going. But I think now we're about to start to see the acceleration of all the work that we've done over the last year and a half. Go ahead, Jonas.
And it was really amazing to see it come together, because that system that we used is a system that we worked like for the last year on to find out what is the best to use. And Tony said 24 hours before his show, he said, could we do it in the cloud? And we were like, yeah, sure. I jumped onto my back end. We have scripts that automatically pull all the instances up 2 hours later, we had the vMix files. Ken did a logo and animated background. And what's cool with the pipeline is he sent it to me over Discord. I put it on my S3. And 2 minutes later, I could just say, hey, Marcus, step off for a second. And Chirag went in, switched the graphics while we were live broadcasting. And it's really cool that that's now all working.
Yeah, Chris.
Yeah, and I think a couple hours before you did it, I was on a breakout room with the guys, and I was like, Tony was asking something about doing the credits, and I go, why don't you just do a little panel on the side? You can read them off of that. And in minutes, Ken had that up, and I think Jonas just, that was one of the frames that you dropped down. It's like, oh, cool. There was my little idea. It was fun.
Yeah. It's really interesting. You know, just let us know. I mean, literally next week I can put you in somewhere. So just ping me if you on days that make sense. Just talk to the team and everything else. I'd love to do a second hour as fast as possible. Next question.
Greg Gibson out of Washington, D.C. is up next, and he explained to a client recently that in a hybrid event, one audience gets ignored. Client said that the hybrid events should be treated like sports events. Sports events have successfully served both a live and a TV audience for years. Curious as to your take on that idea.
Carl?
So I'm going to put it in the context of cricket. This could be similar to baseball. There's far more information. So the information is far more in the televised event, to where the people actually in the grounds now will just actually bring an iPad and pay, $5 per year for the app to watch the live event and hear the commentators and all the information that's put in overlays and stuff while they're actually at the event. The double experience is even better.
Yeah. Go ahead, Aaron.
They're not sports events unless they're sports events. I mean, this is a participatory media. It's not a sports event where you're just watching something.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeffrey.
The biggest thing is they're compartmentalizing it, and they're making the live event is the live event, and the online event is the online event. The hot dog vendor doesn't turn around and go and interact with the online audience. He sells hot dogs to the people there. And so if they compartmentalize it and these conferences realize you've got to have those two different types of situations, then a hybrid event might have a possibility of working.
David?
Yeah, I would just offer that they're both valuable, but they serve two very different purposes. The natural energy from physical proximity is what you get when you're on site, and the rich information and multi-view and all that other stuff is what you get when you're in a digital space. So they're both valuable. And the only other thing I would offer is that remember that in sporting events, they're the primary audience, I think, from a production standpoint, is the digital audience. They don't worry about blocking people's views with cameras.
Leo?
Yeah, I think the two different types of events, or the two deliveries, are different, and that's where the key bit is. That in sport you do get a different experience, but you are where hybrid events are falling down at the moment is they're trying to take the same package and delivering it in two places at once. That's the issue. It's not, and if you do that, you will end up with one group of people who have an inferior thing. If you take the thing and say, this is what we're going to do for the people in the room, and this is what we're going to do for the people there, and it's different. So the people in the room get different types of experiences and the people are remote, which is what happens in sport. I go to sport all the time in the place and watch it. I get two completely different experiences. I will actually watch a game that I've been at on TV afterwards to get a different view and experience. You have to make it so that that happens.
Grant?
Yeah, we need to be clear not to be calling sports hybrid events. It simply is not. And there's lots of conferences, even like Apple events, Apple announcements. They're not hybrid events. It's a live broadcast. And so when we are talking about a hybrid event, as in two different audiences, ultimately, what are you doing to the audience that's in the room that is not available to the people that are online? At a sporting event, you don't ask for questions from 20,000 people, but at these events like conferences, you're going to ask questions, and immediately you're going to push the online audience to the back of the room, that, as in they just don't get any access. These virtual events, we have front row seats.
Stuart?
There's an assumption in the question that we need to address, and it's it's quite significant, especially as you go back further in the history of covering live sporting events. Greg has written, sports events have successfully served both a live and a TV audience for years. Yes, but the live audience and the TV audience have been served separately. It's been separate commentary teams the whole time. It's only recently that they've started to merge. Even on large events where you've got big screens and what have you, and even using the same camera feeds, it's a different truck doing the switch for the live screen at the event compared to what the people are seeing at home. So yes, they've been served at the same time, but not in the same way. They've been served as if they're two completely separate events. Budget limits have started to end up with commentators working on both. But again, if you've got a decent budget, your live commentary at an event is served separately to your TV commentary. We're going to see a greater merging, but again, the moment we ignore one of those audiences, viewership drops.
When you think about sporting events that are successful, just remember that they're spending $5 to $10 million a unit on them. Like just, you know, like that's the other thing you have to remember. Yeah, sure. Everything's great when you spend $5 to $10 million a unit. You know, when you think about, and that's a minimum. Like when you think about a football game, think about the salaries of all those players. Think about their little league and Warner, you know, whatever, and college and all the training that they did to get to that point where they're getting paid that salary. And think about the 150 people that it takes to put the thing together, and think about all those things and the cost that those involved. You can make a lot of things really interesting if you have that many people and that much skill and that much talent in one place. So when we talk about sports, we just have to remember that most of the people that you put up for a conference are not that good. You know, like they're not Michael Jordan or whatever. And you know, and even sports are really wrapped around personalities. I mean, golf became something really big when Tiger Woods was there, and now it's starting to drop off. You know, and you know as the Williams sisters, you know, are slowing down, starting to drop off on tennis. You know, and you know, people go to see, like we used to when Michael Jordan was playing, when I was working at Prime Sports. We just knew he was going to be in the ring, and suddenly we knew all the ratings would be at a certain level, all the other things. You know, there's a whole bunch of things that came around a person. And so the thing is and back to Stuart's position, if you've ever worked in a broadcast at like a basketball game, the in-room experience is completely different than the out. They have all these things to entertain the crowd on the commercial breaks, and all the things to, you know, they're shooting hot dogs into the stands, and they're trying to keep everybody interested. Yeah, they shoot hot dogs into the stand, Chris. Like we're like cannon. It's amazing. But
now I have to go to a game.
And the Pirates do that. Yeah, the Pirates do that. The game, especially the teams that aren't very good, like the Pirates. I come from Pittsburgh. I'm allowed to say that. They're really good at entertaining the crowd because it's the only way you can get them to show up. So anyway, but we also have to remember that conferences are boring. They've always been boring. They've always been bad. You know, like the thing is that so you have to understand that the very premise that you want to go back to is actually a bad experience. The reason that it worked was because you were running into a bunch of other people, you were stuck in your seat, and it would look bad for you to leave, and they had food. So the thing is that they, you know, so those are the reasons that people come to those. Like we knew working on a lot of these events, if you don't feed people, they won't come. Like, you know why? Because it's boring. They come for the free breakfast. They come for the coffee. They come to hang out with each other. They're not listening to you. like, you know, and the problem is that the reason that virtual conferences seem boring is because the only thing to carry it now is the content, which was always bad. You know, so the content was always boring. It was dry. It was stupid, you know, death by PowerPoint. It was all these things. And now you have to live on the actual content for the thing because you don't have all the other things that made it interesting. So the real thing is that what you need to do is make it interesting to actually watch it. And then if this is why a digital first event is so interesting, is because if you just put a screen up there, an LED wall, and you had people presenting and you made it a great show for the people that are online and then the people in the room, they still get the food. They still get to hang out with each other. They might even be able to hang out with the people that were on that LED wall later. You probably have people more engaged than you ever had before because everyone's leaning on this. You know, I mean, like I have streamed at least 1,000 corporate events. I'm just telling you, they're like watching the grass grow. like they're, it's just it's just corporate dribble, and so and so the that aren't, that it doesn't mean anything, and so that's the problem is that people, and what we're finding here, and what people who are successful are finding is when you have a conversation, when you actually interact with your audience, and this is what Tony Robbins knows really well, he spends most of his time interacting with the audience, pulling the audience in. This is not what happens in most conferences, but that's why his are a completely different thing, because he understands that they have to be part of it, and the thing is that when we do all of this, but what we're trying to go back to as a hybrid event was horrible before. Like it just, so you're going back into a hole that isn't worth going back into. What you need to do is redefine how to do that. Go ahead, Chris.
I think we want to be careful when we start describing corporate events as corporate drivel. I think what you meant to say was that it is a highly specialized vertical market with a very narrow audience. To them, to the people that really need to hear those things, it's actually very important. And we very much enjoy being able to help you put on your events. I think that's what Alex meant by corporate driven.
There are. So the thing is that I've been fortunate enough in the last couple of years to work on stuff that is more interesting to watch. But there's been. I don't think anyone was that interested. So the thing is that so here's the thing is that we have to catch the audience. I have to do catches of the audience, so we have cameras pointed at the audience, and we're trying to find somebody who looks like they're interested. Like, so the thing is looking like, oh yeah, how hard that is? Do you know how hard it is? Like they're all looking down at their phones and they're all like this, or it's the dot, it's the head nodding down and everything else. And so we're like scanning through the audience, trying to find the person that actually looks like they're engaged in the event. And that's the problem. And I think that, and I know that I'm sounding hard, and there are definitely exceptions. I mean, there are exceptions to this stuff. There are corporate events that are actually really interesting to watch. They're talking about new things and everything else. But I would say 80-90% of them don't fall into that category there. And I'm not talking about the big keynotes. I'm talking about all these little conferences about some vertical or whatever. It's just that even the people who showed up aren't that interested. They're interested in the food, and they're interested in hanging out with each other and possibly talking to someone in the company while they're there. Like those are the things that they came for, was to talk to a person, to interact. They sit through the plenaries and they sit through the breakout sessions. But they rarely, are that engaged in that process. Yeah, go ahead, Leo.
Yeah, I mean, I look back around the mid 2000s, the cost for producing a Premiership football game in the UK was over £1 million a game. That's how much it actually cost.
That's the technical cost
to roll up.
That's the technical cost, not all the talent costs.
No, absolutely not. But just the technical cost. And nobody spends that sort of money on their corporate events to that level. And then you add in, and not only as you were saying earlier about the different audio commentary, you also had a completely different audio commentary set up for radio. This has been going for a long time. They've had a long time to practice. When Sky came into the market in the UK and they launched the Premiership, they completely changed the market. It took them a number of years to change it and move it to this product that now you see, which is very similar to things like Formula One, etc. They are really highly produced, incredibly complex products. Yeah. And a hybrid event put together in 15 minutes doesn't match it.
Well, and most companies don't take it seriously either. I mean, they don't take it like a broadcast. I mean, there are a handful of companies we've worked with that if you're publicly facing, you're getting 2 or 3 hours of training, like really hard training every week. Like every week you're being trained to how to speak and and if you're up there on stage, you've memorized everything. There's no teleprompter. There's like, I can't say which companies, but they literally have everything memorized, and they have practiced it for 3 or 4 weeks. Their hand motions, where they're going to be in the room, these are the ones that play the hardest, and they actually are really interesting to watch. For the most part, you end up with, non-professional broadcast talent, which is otherwise called the C-suite, attempting to read off of a teleprompt, and doing something they only do a couple times a year. And it's just, it's often a little static, you know. And so again, all I'm saying is that you're now taking that, and you have to, one of the reasons that hybrid doesn't work is that it doesn't work in the room that well. It just, you're just getting buffered by all the other things around it. And now on the online, you have to live off of what you actually, were doing, and people just leave. They just leave, or they disengage. They put you up in the corner. They stop watching. That's why all you have to do is look at average view times. I mean, for those of us in the back end, we can tell you the things that your own staff won't tell you, which is that your view time is really low, and then if you do eye tracking, it's even worse. They're just disappearing, like, 60 to 90 seconds of a slide and they're gone, and you're not going to get them back. And so they may be still streaming too. This is the worst part. This is what we learned when we did eye tracking. They're still streaming, but you're underneath some other window. Like you're literally, they're listening to you in the background. You're kind of up in a corner, and they're working on email and other things and all the other things that they're doing. The things that they were doing when they're in the room too. They're on their phone, texting and checking their email and everything else. It's just that, so the thing is, this is a very emperor's new clothes situation, where all these event teams think that they were doing something that was working, and it wasn't really working. And now they have to make it really work. Go ahead, Chris.
I was asked several years ago to direct a keynote from a guy that I know and a company I know you've worked for. And they said, yeah, he wants it to be like a Steve Jobs keynote. I said, I need a week to rehearse and 8 cameras. And they said, oh, you're not going to get that. He's going to show up 15 minutes before.
Right.
I said, then it absolutely will not be like a Steve Jobs keynote.
If you want a Steve Jobs keynote, you start 8 weeks ahead of time.
You start with Steve Jobs.
No, you start with Steve Jobs. You start 8 weeks ahead of time. You have, you've been planning what you were going to do for the last year.
Yeah, he wanted to walk in 15 minutes before. I said, it will never happen.
Yeah. And you've got a budget that's, north of $10 million, that's, I mean, like the Apple keynotes are the gold standard. That and Frame.io. I think Frame.io did a really good job of theirs, but I think the Apple is the gold standard, but I don't think anyone has any sense of the level that takes. It is at something that is completely another level, and they think, oh, we can just do that. And people say that to me too. Like, I just want it to be like an Apple keynote, and I'm like, okay, I would love to give you that. I would love to give you that. That budget, sure, I'm happy to roll that out for you. But probably not.
I mean, you'd have to get Carl to do the graphics.
Yeah, exactly. Next question.
Next question comes from Roberto Barrow in Plymouth Meeting, Pennsylvania. And Roberto says, Alex, I'm sorry?
Sorry, that was my fault. I forgot to pause.
Anyway, he says, Alex, is there any way to leave the after hours conversation live when you switch on office hours? Sometimes there's a good conversation going that is severed mid-sentence.
Sorry, that was today. I'm still a little behind after being gone for a week, and I was putting stuff together, and anyway, so normally we won't do that, but we will stop after hours for office hours.
23 hours a day is just not enough, Alex.
I know. Understand. We need to get to 26, 27 hours a day, So as we go into office hours 2.0, most likely what we're going to do is set it up where we can, the panelists will kind of come through after hours, say hi to everybody, and then go into a breakout room and do the show. So, cause there won't be a webinar needed at that point. So that's a different thing. And then there won't be an after hours, office hours. They'll just be, I don't even know what we'll call it, but it'll just be one unified system. And so then you won't have that problem, and you can stay in after hours or go to or watch office hours or do both, so we're working towards that. We just don't have it done yet. Next question.
I vote for all the hours. Anyway, Eric Hall of Mount Vernon, Washington says, has anyone played with honeypots on Arduino or Raspberry Pi?
Honeypots? What is a honeypot? Go ahead, Aaron.
So a honeypot is a way to expose security vulnerabilities. So you set up something that's intentionally unsecure and it's firewalled off from everything else. Mm-hmm. And then you see what happens. So you put up an unpatched machine on the internet and see, like, 5 seconds later, somebody's hacked it.
Yeah. Jeffrey.
I've done it before, but not recently. Yeah.
Jeffrey.
Yeah, it's also a way to kind of mask your actual network, so they think that they're in the environment when they're really not in the environment. I've used honeypots for many years, and I've done the Honey Pi, which is the Raspberry Pi version of the Honey Pi, and it works really well. But you know, if you start to get a lot of traffic coming into that, it will definitely start to seize up and cause problems.
Next question.
Manolo Lorenzo in the UK is up next with what is the current setup for office hours screen arrangement and cutting the show? For example, are you using Zoom ISO and Zoom OSC?
We're not using Zoom ISO and Zoom OSC in the current version. We are building to use it in the next version. So right now, this is all just cut inside of Zoom. So it's by Aaron right now, but we are moving towards doing it in ISO and Zoom OSC, probably just a couple weeks out. Next question.
Tommy Shantz in St. Paul, Minnesota asks, I was able to copy a Facebook video to my Windows PC and can't get it into PowerPoint. That app needs an MP4 AAC, and I'm having difficulty doing a conversion. What's the best way to do this?
Go ahead, Carl.
So Handbrake. Handbrake will take whatever video you got from Facebook and it'll pump it out in the exact format you need.
Handbrake is generally just a it's a graphical interface for FFmpeg. So you can use Handbrake. If you want to get geeky, you can go into the terminal and use FFmpeg if you want to go deep. But Handbrake will do it. Go ahead, Grant.
Yeah, the latest version of PowerPoint is doing a better job of doing conversion as you bring it in, and it actually works very well for some of those like Windows media file old videos. It'll do a conversion and then it'll play on Mac and everything all just works. So that's the Office 365 version of PowerPoint. It does a very good job.
Next question.
Douglas Carmichael back in with any dockable field cameras still popular? Are any of them still popular? For example, easily to reconfigure to new storage formats, or have they gone out of style with a move away from tape?
Good, Carl.
So those kind of cameras are still around. They're not dockable anymore, like as far as putting a different deck at the back. The camera housing or the camera block comes off so they can go on cranes and they can go into tight spaces and that kind of stuff. So you can actually have the camera block, which is essentially 2 inches by 2 inches by 2 inches plus a lens, and then the recorder or whatever else at the back end, which can be connected by a big cable.
Next question. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Stuart.
Yeah, just to add to what Carl was saying there, you'll find if you go and look at Blackmagic stuff, they actually have a dockable back that will do fiber or triax. But those dockable backs for connecting to a mixer is basically where you find those camera bodies being used now. So it's an ENG body with a box lens, and the back is the connection to the camera control unit. And that's about the only application for them now.
Next question.
Tommy Shantz in St. Paul, Minnesota asks, aside from a playout B, what would you use a Raspberry Pi to do in your AV setup? Is anyone using them now for other functions?
Go ahead, Carl.
Mine Bitcoin very slowly.
Go ahead, Stuart.
I can recommend a program called Decaffeine if you want to do NDI across them. Although I've had a chat back and forth with the guy, it looks like I'm the last person to pay for the license before it was made free. So it's now a free app, and it's permanent beta because it's not the guy's primary job, but it functions as advertised, and I haven't had it fall over yet. So I'm kind of happy because I use it to bring in my graphics into vMix from like websites that have got the live timing for our motorsports.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
There's many things you can do with a Raspberry Pi for that. The biggest, the most basic one is to do just a simple web browser screen scrape, bring that in via HDMI cable into a capture card, and run it from there. That way, or if somebody's doing a demo or something like that, I deal with a lot of enterprise techs, and they're working in Linux environments, so they'll work on the Raspberry Pi. We'll bring it over into the main video and show people how things work.
Jonas?
You can run Companion on it, which I really like. So you have a separate Companion instance, another NDI viewer if you want someone. One that is out of beta is the Allfast one. I haven't tested that one, but it seems to work pretty good. And then Video Ninja is working on an encoder that's based on the Raspberry Pi, and you can do lots of video stuff with a like a custom Engine X RTMP server, a small server. You can use Nimble Streamer to convert the RTMP of an ATEM Mini Extreme, for example, into SRT. That's one of the use cases I really like.
Next question.
Mark McCain in Austin, Texas is up next. With BitFocus Companions, dynamic variables seem a great way to pull device state info in order to make smarter buttons, but the list of connections with preset variables is very limited. Anyone have any examples or resources for creating variables?
Go ahead, Jonas.
You can't create a variable. The variables that are there depend on what the person that has written that module gives you. For example, Sumos is one of the largest ones that implements that, and they have lots of variables. And for vMix, we have variables, so the buttons are already named correctly for the different input, but there's no way you can create it without programming a module.
Next question.
Comes from Fred Eric Eckert in Bad Herrenalb, Germany, and he says, how often has vMix instances on AWS crash during the show?
Jonas?
I haven't had a crash, but I had one time where I was like, something is odd, let's restart. And that's really nice if you can just restart in a minute and nobody notices because you're still in a holding slide.
Go ahead, George.
I haven't had any crashes, but definitely you want to practice offloading. So definitely switch on one machine, and if you need to stream on a second machine.
Go ahead, Stuart.
I actually know how to crash vMix, as in if you want to do it deliberately. If you bring an NDI client onto a network that is running a different version, you can cause some issues. But the way to crash vMix is actually use two on the same network with the same license. One of them will turn the other off.
Yep.
I found this while trying to experiment and using two machines to do, one being the replay box and one being the actual box, and yeah, it turns the other off. Good
Leo?
work, vMix coding.
So I've had no crashes over 15 events. 2 of those events were 24 hours. So we went 24 hours on both of those events and there was no crashes.
Next question.
Georgie Kennedy Jr., our friend here on the panel from Washington, D.C., says, why is my Blackmagic bidirectional converter producing heavy latency over time? My Pocket 4K and ATEM Extreme are connected to it.
Yeah, go ahead, Carl.
So I need to get clarification from George, I guess, for this, but are you switching to like SDI, then coming back? So you're going from HDMI, SDI back to HDMI? Is that
Go ahead, George.
Well, I thought I'd explain. So I had my Pocket going into a bidirectional and then to HDMI distribution. So I started seeing some latency on this show and after hours. So I investigated it. Right now I'm going into the video assist and out of the video assist into the ATM, and everything looks fine. As you can see, I'm in sync. But when I put it into the converter and then going, I guess it's maybe too many conversions, but definitely I started seeing some off sync. So I don't know what could be the solution, maybe using a decimator, or it's just the converter that's doing latency over time.
Yeah, go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, I mean, you'll get conversion latency every time you convert. Like you're going to lose half a frame or a frame depending on the converter. So it's just part of the deal.
Go ahead, Leo.
Just 2 things I'd really make sure is check to see if any of them are getting hot. I had one that was causing a problem. It was getting hot. Make sure you're on the 3G ones of them. And update the firmware on them. There was a firmware update that did fix certain things, but I had a lot of problems with one that kept on going, and it was getting super hot. I just threw it away and got a new one.
All right, go ahead, George.
Because definitely it was the same workflow that I've been using for months on after hours, and suddenly it just kind of went sideways.
Yeah, I don't think I have a strong answer. We just used them for a show and they worked great. They were on for days. So I'm not, it might be a specific unit. Next question.
Ari Block is coming into the show from Tel Aviv, Israel, and Ari says, might we see a virtual production, various aspects thereof, being significantly outsourced to traditional outsourcing destinations such as India or Eastern Europe for the purposes of capacity augmentation, as well as cost arbitrage?
Go ahead, Leo.
Yeah, I think we will. And there's this has an advantage and disadvantage, especially when you're talking about time zones and delivering stuff. So, as I said before, I did the 24-hour event, and we used and took a benefit of the people on different time zones. The fact that everybody can access these AWX boxes from wherever they are in the world, and the convenience that they can be sitting at home and not having to drive 2 hours somewhere just to go and operate something and then disappear back home again. I think you will see it. It's going to be a skills issue. You can look at it as offshoring, but if you still need high quality people, and if it turns out that high quality people don't happen to be 100 yards away from you, but are then that's life.
Yep. Go ahead, Grant.
Yeah, I don't think it's a question of geography. It's that all events rise and fall on communication. And so the effective communication of the teams. And so I work with developers that are from all different countries, and I have language problems all the time. We do. And if luckily we're not on a time pinch, but if all events are time pinched. And so if you have a language barrier issue at an event, that's a real problem. And so I think that's more of an issue than the geography.
Yeah, Alan?
Grant pretty much covered most of it then. It's in the same way that software development currently is outsourced to places like India, and that there are elements of it which are still in the sort of native countries of where there is, and it's the communication side of it, and it's the culture of the teams you work in as well.
A lot of people are, the issue is that in a live event with a team that's working in unison in real time, the connection between the team is super important. What you saw with Tony Mobley's, for instance, is a bunch of people that now have known each other for hundreds and hundreds of hours of hanging out together and working together. And they've picked the people that they know that they can work with, and they work through those things. And so there's a huge piece of that wouldn't have happened otherwise. And, I worry way more about how someone fits into my team than I worry about their skill set. I can train anybody to do anything, but I need them to be, good at being part of a team mostly. Now, if they're reasonably good and really good, now if they're really good and good to be part of a team, we want to go back to them all the time. So the problem is that in a lot of these countries, the look of TV and the look of broadcast there is very different than here, and the expectations are different, and what is okay there is not okay here. There's a lot, like we can talk about it going out, being sent out to places, that are outside of our culture, but the chances of that happening soon is low. Now they're doing a lot of their own stuff too, and especially in India, the big problem is they're doing so much of their own work, they don't need us. China's the same thing. Like they're so busy. Like China's live broadcasting is so much bigger than ours that, by 100 times, for live streaming, because they're doing like some crazy number of sales just doing live product stuff like Amazon Live and stuff like that. So a lot of these countries don't need us, to do those things, and so they're working quite happily on their own. And in addition to that, the cultural clash with this whole process will be difficult. We're going to move on because I'm running out of time. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael says, have any of you had experience with Roland switchers and audio consoles? I've traditionally bought them as music products company, thought of them as a music products company, not an AV company.
Go ahead, Carl.
So I used a 4-channel Roland mixer, about $7,000 for HDMI, for SDI in pretty much every day for quite a while. But to the second part of your question, Kakahashi-san, the founder of Roland, wrote a book in 2016. And he wrote a book about exactly what we talk about here on Office Hours. He would have been the greatest second-hour guest we could have ever had, because he kind of invented this idea of what we talk about here in Office Hours. He wrote 2 books. This was the second book he wrote. He believed that video was the most important thing since the 80s. So in the 80s, Roland went into the video realm. He believed that a creative person, musicians in his case, were much better suited if they could serve the people in the room, but also they could reach so many more people via live video. And he saw how good live video could do for creatives to share their message with more people that can fit in one room. And so this book, written in 2016, is quite amazing from him, and it actually discusses everything we discuss every day here on Office Hours.
That's great. Grant?
Yeah, the first digital console that I used, audio console, was a Roland. It was about 12, no, 15 years ago, and it blew my mind because it was all just over a cat cable off to a stage box and flying faders and stuff, and it was just awesome. And then I've used a few Vision switches along the way. They all seem fine, but I've certainly settled on Blackmagic gear.
Next question.
Lopez Waterman, our friend in Brainerd, Minnesota right now, says, for those with lots of YouTube experience, how do you share a YouTube link and have the thumbnail show up correctly in places like Facebook? Even after changing the thumbnail, it seems to post the old one.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
So in Facebook, all you basically have to do is go to the ellipsis on the top right-hand side and drop down, and then say refresh share attachment, and that'll go back to YouTube, and it will find the current thumbnail. So if you make that change, as for it coming at the beginning, if there's any type of connection issue between the two, I had this problem early on where I'd have to go and do the share attachment almost every single time. But if there's a connection issue, then it won't show up.
Leo?
Just on that one point, I would say that this isn't good practice in my experience of sharing YouTube to Facebook. They don't like it. You don't get the levels you want. I would argue you're better off pulling the video down off YouTube, saving it and uploading it to Facebook directly, and then having it native on Facebook.
Next question.
Scott Mueller in Germantown, New York is up next with, is there a retractable gray backdrop that the panel can recommend that I can mount to my 8-foot ceiling? Also, how far behind me should the backdrop be?
Go ahead, Carl.
So Manfrotto make a system where you can actually just have a roll of grey paper and you can actually just roll it down. So it's retractable because you can roll it back up again. It's a pretty cheap system, and you can change the color of paper, and paper is pretty cheap as well.
Yeah, go ahead, Aaron.
I know Ken Jordan, who's often here, uses an IKEA roller blind, a blackout curtain, and it works really well. It's about 3 feet wide, 2.5 feet wide.
Stuart?
There's a ton of these available for sale on sites like Banggood and what have you, and some of them are based on the roller curtain example. But if you're looking for something that's odd, that you might have sitting around if you can't go out and go shopping, remember all those screens that everybody used to put up for projectors, and they'd have a lovely mirrored or half mirrored sort of surface on it with the little glass beads? Put it up backwards. Most of them are gray on the back of them.
Go ahead, Bill.
Also remember that the geometry of your shot is going to depend on your camera lens, and that's going to affect the distance. Your last part of the question was, how far behind me should it be? And with a 16:9 camera, you're going to have to open up your camera shot and determine where the background needs to fill the edges, unless you want gaps. It's a matter of math, and it only works that way.
Yeah, and what I use is a Elastilite 7x6, and it's not retractable, but it does close up. You can pop it up. It requires maybe a few swear words to close it, but it generally is. Once you figure out how to fold it into a taco, it works okay. Next question.
Ash Yadev in New York City is up next with, what is the recommended prep work for the MetaHuman masterclass tomorrow?
Not a masterclass. It's not tomorrow. It's Saturday. It's not a master class. It's what I know so far. So anyways, so we're all going to talk about it. And I don't know if anybody's a master of MetaHuman yet, but I just did an introduction, and we'll talk through the process. But just download it. Make sure that you've loaded it once. So install it, because it can take up to a day or two for you to get approved by Epic to do it. Everybody gets approved, but it's just a matter of, you have to go through the process, because every time you start MetaHuman, it actually spins up an AWS cycle. So that's why it takes like a minute and 15 seconds like that's how long those take up. So anyway, the instances take a little time to start up. That's why you need to register, and they need to figure it out, and they're managing their own capacity. But I haven't seen anybody get turned down, but it does take up to 2 days. So do that, open it up, play with it a little bit, come with questions, and we'll all talk about it. But yeah, it's more of a lab and less of a teaching on Saturday. I've spent a lot of time in it. I don't know if I've mastered anything yet. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael's up next. He said, when I read an FCC document about local TV stations connecting to DirecTV or Dish Network, they talked about using a fiber optic line to their uplink center. What hardware would be on each end of the line? Would it be a Blackmagic design SDI to fiber converter?
Go ahead, Aaron.
No, they use broadcast grade DWDM transmitters usually. So they purchase a what's called a wavelength from a fiber provider, and that gets it from end to end directly into those head ends at Dish and DirecTV.
Yeah, one of the to go between these things, one of the more popular hardware companies is NetInsight, and they make the one that we see the most around is the Nimbra. Is one of the things that's very extensible and allows you to move from location to location through an MPLS or other kind of private networks. Next question.
From somebody named Alex L in Novato, California, and this guy.
So
says-
I just want you to know, I was gonna ask this. I was gonna ask Carl privately, and I was like, why should I ask it privately? We should talk about it here. So anyway,
This
go
way you
ahead.
get a
read it,
free
Bill.
slide.
There you
Yeah.
go.
See.
The question is, I have a new Behringer Poly D. What is the best way to listen to it?
I got it, and I was like, I don't have any way to listen to it right now, and I was like, my kids were all excited, and I have it opened, and I was like, yeah, I need, and I'm getting some cables to put it into my Scorpio, but I was like, I just was curious what Carl and maybe Todd had to say. Go ahead, Carl.
All right. So as far as best way to listen to it personally, these are the headphones.
But what do you
So
plug it into?
in the back? So there's a headphone port in the back and on the front.
There was no head. Is it in
Yeah,
the back?
there's a headphone.
Is it in the panel that you pull up?
So if you go around the back, you'll notice this headphone. And it's got its own pot. It's got its own pot as well. The headphones, it's got its own pot at the back as well. While we wait.
This will be the greatest moment in all of After Hours. There's yeah, I see the headphone pot. Okay, never mind.
It's the
Next
simple
question.
things in life. Yeah.
He's left the room.
You
This
see
is
around
bad
hole.
television, Alex.
Is it either 3.5
No.
millimeters?
So is it the
Next
thing that
question.
says after pressure?
No. So there's a headphone either in the front panel. If you want to use the front panel, there's headphones and a headphone knob.
I don't see anything that says headphones.
the
That's the
wrong
problem.
I think
All
we
right.
need a camera on your unit, Alex.
Come on.
We should have the
Go
camera
get
ready
it.
for today.
Unplug it. Bring it over. This is the best After Hours entertainment.
This is
in the
not
last
after
year and a
hours,
half.
Mr.
Oh,
Fenwick.
it's
This
office
is not
hours.
after hours.
It's on the front panel, right?
Your mic is open, product.
I'm pretty sure it's on the front panel with your headphones and the back panel's the output.
Right over to the right.
So yeah, if you take it, turn the front, show the front panel. I understand it's a very heavy synth. Did you find it, Alex?
Yeah, I found it.
It's right above the knob that says phones.
So-
Right above the
so the
knob that
funny thing
says
is
volume for the phones.
Yeah, the ones that says volume phones. I thought I just like literally I just got it. My kids were there, and everything else has had all the headphones and everything else on the back panel, like all the other Behringers. So I immediately just looked up across all the little quarter inches, and I was like, I don't know where the headphone jack is. There was all these other things that were in the back, and I was like, I can't believe this thing doesn't have a headphone jack. It's got to have a headphone jack. And of course, I looked at it.
Can
Just
you
for a
wake
minute.
up? Can you wake up your kids, bring them in, and let us see their faces? When
In
you
this
tell them?
episode of
Well,
Office
the funny
Hours,
thing
Alex
is-
Lindsay finds the headphone
Here's the
jack.
funny thing is that I got it and I couldn't find it immediately, and I had to go to dinner with the kids or whatever, and I immediately just goes. I just went. I'm just gonna ask Carl later. Like I'm just gonna I'm not gonna like. Here's the worst part of Office Hours. It's made me horribly lazy. Like there's no manual. There's just Office Hours. Like there's just like I'm just gonna ask somebody how to do this. I'm not gonna try to figure this out. Like anyway. So we figured it out together. Anyway, it looks
This
really
is the
cool.
best thing possible, though, because for everybody watching, if you think your questions are too simple
See,
or everybody's
I
going to
just-
laugh at you or whatever,
See?
this is the environment we work in. It doesn't matter. Go
But
ahead.
please note. But
put
please
your
note.
question in. It's fine.
We are all laughing at Alex, so be prepared for that.
I think we're laughing with Alex because Alex is laughing at
I think
himself,
you're
which is
laughing at me.
exactly the
I'm-
office hours spirit.
I know that I'm laughing at me. Go ahead, Courtney.
Well, the way in answer to your question, the way I listen to mine is I take the line left and line right out into a mixer that has digital effects on it, so I can add additional effects that aren't in the analog synth, and then I monitor headphones out of the mixer or through speakers.
Oh, that was great, Alex. Thank you for that.
And partially great because we've
Makes
all
the
been there.
whole
We've all
pandemic
made
worth it.
that little gap in our thinking because we were so busy doing other things, and we've done exactly the same thing. All of us,
Anyway,
every single one of us.
We will be doing more after. We'll start probably in after hours, but there'll be some labs and everything else as I start to put this together. Got something else here. Hold on. Where did I put it?
We will
Anyway,
resist.
The Wasp
saying,
is here too. So it's,
Should you find a headphone
there's a
jack
bunch of,
to
there's a
anybody
bunch
who
of
has a
pieces.
problem?
Go ahead, Carl.
And for those who do want to play along, so for those who have analog sense or interest in analog sense, or even digital sense for that matter, these headphones are pretty much the standard for listening to electronic music and synths in particular, especially analog synths. They will actually shake the actual cones. So the actual cones inside will actually shake when you go down lower frequencies.
Next question.
Stefan Fischer in Würzburg, Germany is up next. And Stefan asks, what is the panel's recommendation for lower budget 4-channel audio recorders for non-XLR and non-XLR microphones like the Rode Wireless Go? The Zoom Pod Track would be nice, but it only has XLR.
Go ahead, Carl.
So this one actually does 6 lines in. It records to your smartphone, Android or iOS. So you simply plug in, let's say iOS, put in GarageBand, you'll show up with 6 channels. Now it does have an XLR in, but let's pretend that one doesn't exist. It has 6 channels, so 6 line ins, and they'll be able to do 2 of them. 4 line ins via 1/8 inch. So that's the same that comes out of those, Rode Goes, and 2 of them are 1/4 inch. So you get a bit of variety there, but you can adapt those. But yeah, so 6 lanes or 6 channels total that can be recorded to, let's say, GarageBand on your phone.
Go ahead, Courtney.
But it's not a self-contained recorder though, so you would need to record in your phone.
You need to have the phone or Android phone.
Yeah, he asked for a budget 4-channel recorder, but so I don't think that would fill the bill.
Next question.
Jim Hankins of Chesterfield, Michigan says, before I RMA one of my ATEM Extreme ISOs due to non-functional camera control, has anyone successfully factory reset one of those?
Go ahead, Leo.
Yeah, seems to be a hard thing that you can't actually fully factory reset. But what you can do is you can go File, open up the software control, do File and clear the startup state. And that's as close as anybody has ever been able to find that I can find to do a factory reset of them.
Go ahead, Carl.
Blackmagic allows you to download previous versions of the software. So you can actually go back a version, then go forward a version. That is also a factory reset.
Look at that. Next question.
David Paskin here in the panel from Miami, Florida is up next with a group as knowledgeable and conscientious about muting in Zoom. As the panelists are in office hours, why do you cut the show manually rather than allow Zoom to auto switch based on the audio?
Go ahead, Carl.
So when Bill asks a question, we actually like to see the gallery view so we can see responses. And there are some times when someone's speaking and we actually want to see the panel's reaction. I'm sure that the last question we had just before with Alex and synthesizer, the gallery view would be priceless. But there are some instances where gallery view, and it makes sense to the person cutting the show, and we leave it up to them, of course, when gallery view makes more sense.
Next question.
Comes from George Kennedy in Washington, D.C. here on the panel. How do we continue to play nicely with all parties on productions when there are multiple companies involved in these things?
Go ahead, George.
So I know I'm going to be quick about it. So this week was definitely been challenging. We still have a lot of platforms that we have to deal with. And language as far as RTMP, stream key, and it's all become convoluted, and folks don't know the side that we work on. So it's been supplying the needs of folks has been challenging this week as far as knowing what RTMP is. Not on my side, but definitely on the platform we're going into. They don't have an ingest point for RTMP, which is kind of standard in our industry. But using Vimeo IDs and Brightcove IDs, I just wanted to put that out there. I know it's for a larger conversation next time, but playing nice, and especially when we're dealing with the opposite sex, we have to make sure we're not talking and each other, not talking down to the client or talking down to other third parties. So definitely trying to explain to them what it is without explaining it and talking down has definitely been challenging this week, because they have a different idea of what we do and what the language should be when we're saying things like stream key. Stream key is an RTMP code. It's not something that you need from a Vimeo ID. A Vimeo ID is something different. So I just want to put it out there. It's been a little bit challenging for me this week in being able to communicate with them what our needs are and what their needs are. They didn't really know what they need because they're calling it something different than what we would use.
Yeah, go ahead, Grant.
Yeah, I had similar problems, and I think with different teams and different clients at the end, and you're requesting things and they have no idea what what you're asking for. Time is always helpful. You know, getting ahead of it really is helpful, and then really knowing your lanes. You know, we're having a similar problem where we're now defining very clearly, you know, what is our role and what is the role of an event company or a professional conference organizers, because it's getting really blurry now. They were used to just being on site and staying in their conference, you know, in their conference organizers room. Now they're actually much more a part of the control room of where we're at, and we have to be really clear about this is what we do, and this is what we expect you to do, and that's how we work together. And sometimes we have to get explicit and write that down and keep it really clear so we know what our lanes are.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, I would suggest writing everything down, as Grant said at the end, beforehand. What you need, where to get it, how to get it, documenting it, putting it on a website or a wiki or just an email will help you a lot.
Yeah, and as best you can, you want to get as much of the information ahead of time as possible. Trying to do it right before the show or during load in or whatever. If someone's got an ingest, especially, you want to test that ingest as soon as you can. So as soon as someone contracts you, you're trying to figure out where is it going, how is it going, and then you have sometimes weeks of going back and forth. Oh, I don't really understand this, and it's a lot less stressful. You know, you get it all working. A lot of times we'll attach our encoders to people's ingest points a week ahead of time, and just make sure that they're seeing signal and everything else. And that's just part of our process to make sure that the system works, so that we're not getting to your point. We're not getting to a point where we're on fire and trying to figure it out in real time. Go ahead, Alan.
Another one is actually having for communication is a concise glossary of terms. So what it is you want, and also if they call it something or it's known something different in the industry, or it's trying to include them so that people actually understand. And if it's something you need from them, make sure you say what it is, so that they actually understand.
Absolutely. Last question for the hour.
Last question comes from Sam Heiselbeck in Columbus, Indiana. He says, Reincubate's Camo looks like a good iPhone as webcam app option. Does anyone have experience with Camo, or what is your favorite app that accomplishes this task?
Go ahead, David.
Sure. So this is the Reincubate Camo app. Technically, this is on Android. I think technically this is in beta, but it works. It's solid. I plug it in and plug it into the computer, and it just opens the app automatically. It's fantastic.
That's great. All right. Now we're going to shift gears. So we're in our second hour. A lot of times we have our kits, and we talked about how we looked yesterday, but what we haven't done is really shown what it takes to do what we're doing. So we thought we would turn the cameras around and give everybody a little bit of a view of that. And so we're just going to go through the panelists here and show what their kit is if they're willing to show it. If not, drop out now. But otherwise, if you're ready to show how you're doing what you're doing, then and if you don't have a back camera to show that, just explain what you have. But if you do have another camera, it'd be great to see it. So, and if you have questions about the kits, then throw them into Makana and we'll go from there. All right, Aaron, what do you got?
Hi there. So what I have is a picture. So I am shooting with a GH5 and I have a small teleprompter.
And what teleprompter are you using?
It's a TMP 100 from Glide Gear.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a Lilliput 811, and it's a Gitzo tripod. Mm-hmm. And then I just have another monitor below it. This is all connected to this Mac Mini down here underneath the MixPre. It's connected through the ATEM into the MixPre and the Mac Mini. So it's a real simple setup. And then here's the other angle, I guess. I'm also the best dad ever, apparently. And yeah, it's really simple, but it works really well. And I can, drag things to the Mac Mini output. One of the screens is output through the Mac Mini goes out into the ATEM, and then the second output of the ATEM goes into that monitor. So I can drag things over and put them on the ATEM just by dragging the window over. And then And then I have a ring light, which you see above there. I don't remember which one has. Yeah, you can't really see it from there, but I have a ring light from there, and then the background. Let me get the right picture up. The background is just a little MC light on an auto pole with some clamps to kind of pull it away from the thing, the background. So that's it.
Let's jump to Carl. Whoa. Can't hear you, Carl.
Okay, so there we go. So the camera, so I'm coming in through my my AirPods, so I can actually move around a bit. I can move away from my microphone. So the camera is a 5D SLR with a nifty 50 with a lens hood. So then that helps from the light. So the light is pretty simple setup. I'll try to keep it really simple. So it's just this is a 35 watt Westcott going into a 30-inch reflector, and then that comes back to me. So here's my monitor. So my monitor is essentially, there's my keynotes, there's Makana, there's you guys, all cool. And then my room is kind of diffused. So I have a Kallax here with everything in it. And so Alex may see these particular, there's quite a few patch cables there for synthesizers. But yeah, so essentially this is good for diffusion. Up the top, I have drum kit. I have my analog console, recording console, and a Hummingbird. Then over here's Music Corner, which some people have seen. So down there's my SG, then my keyboards, my synthesizers. My couch is the only thing that moves, so it just rotates 90 degrees when I do office hours. And then the infamous bookcase at the back. So there's synthesizers. There's another rack of equipment up there as well. So, and that's got a cover on it to keep the dust out. And there's a handful of synthesizers. There's more synthesizers up top there. There's a bass guitar up there. And my hands up, put my hand up. I should put that hand up in sometimes, it'd be funny. But yeah, so there's the bookcase there. So there you can see it in all shelves. So a lot of Star Wars books, a lot of Beatles books, a lot of textbooks, a lot of Blu-rays and DVDs as well. But yeah,
that's great.
So that's my setup.
That's great. Todd, let's see your setup.
Okay, here we go. I'm going to take a slightly different tack this morning because first of all, Carl is so much more organized than me. So I'm not going to show you all of my gear, but I thought I would just try to show you a little bit of how I make stuff work.
We kind of want to see all of your gear.
I know, but it's so much more fun. I'm going to show you my multi-view. I'm going to show you my cameras and my desk, which is messy, but I'll show it to you anyway. And then I'm going to make everybody regret looking because I'm going to show you one pedal that all the musicians will want to buy. So I'll just feature one pedal and then that'll be it. So here's the multi-view. Let's go there first. There we go. So here's my ATEM multi-view. The upper right-hand corner, of course, is my program. And then those are my cameras, and that's kind of what I look at. The AC6300 on the upper left is what you see me through most of the time. It's right here in front of me. And then I got a GoPro over here on the right. And we've got that. And that's, of course, my synth, but you know all about that. And we've shown that before. Then also I use an iPad as well as a notability overlay thing, so I can do that quite easily with this key right there. So let's see if I can go there. There we go. So we've got the iPad kind of in function. In my left desktop, you probably already know that I use Ableton Live, which is my drug of choice in all things musical. And what else I want to show you? And then my M1 is what I'm actually looking at you all at these days. So I use two computers. I decided to separate my audio and my video. So my M1 does everything video in Zoom, and then my old laptop does my all of my audio. So therefore I have completely separate audio chains, and I don't get any stress on my setups that way at all. And then finally, here is my messy desk. And just to show you what's going on here, of course, my iPad. This is Ableton's Push. What's kind of nice here is you can see how integrated this particular controller is. As I move, you should be able to see up in the monitor just to the left above it. I'm not sure how well you can see, but basically everything you see on that monitor is mirrored down in this controller. Then over here is a MIDI Fighter Twister, a Stream Deck, And the MIDI Fighter Twister is just a simple MIDI control, which is awesome. All these endless rotary encoders, and when you press them down, they become buttons as well. And the Stream Deck, which has been my constant companion ever since I started using it. And then the ATEM Mini Extreme, which I would never, ever go back with. This is a fabulous piece of kit. So that's kind of how I make the video things happen. And then finally, the one pedal I was going to show you is by, oh goodness, my cables aren't long enough. So let's see, how can I do this for you? I think I can do it like this. Look up Game Changer Audio. This is called the Plus pedal, and it is indeed a game changer. So here I go. This is said pedal. And what it allows me to do, which I'll just demo at the end, it looks like a piano sustain pedal. And that's exactly what it does. So if I pluck a note, it grabs the ring off of that note and regenerates it granularly. So I have a constant drone, and I can add up to 5 notes at a time. One moment, and I'll show you. There. There we go. So if I enable here, I'll just give you, I'll show you my other, I have a really piece of old technology, which still works, but I'm going to show you. Looks like this. And so if I, there we go. If I just, that's just a reverb, but if I do this, this will go on literally forever until I unplug it. And I can actually add a note. Right? So it's like that's, and then a quick stomp on that pedal fades it all out. So that's that.
That's great. That's yeah. What I love about this is that we're all going to go back and we're going to keep on digging through that. I've already looked at Game Changer, and looks pretty cool. But I think that, this is a really interesting one for all of us, because we just get to trade notes and figure out what the other folks are doing. There's a bunch of things in yours that I was like, ooh, I think I might try that. So I think that this is really interesting. Anyway, go ahead, Alan.
Okay, bear with me 1 second. Right. I think we've got a review of me now. Yeah, so I'm in my shed, which is down the garden. And this is probably the lowest budget one of the lot. These computers here are nothing to do with my setup. They are my work computers, which are here all day. At the top, I've got my camera behind here. Bear with me 1 second. Rear camera is my rear camera is the iPhone. So I've got my A5100 in the middle now, after I was told to move it yesterday, and it definitely works better between the two two screens. So I've got the Rode Podcaster on my homemade arm, which is a cheap monitor arm, which I've done it so it can be a bit more out of the way. Lighting is just cheap LED strip lights at the back for sort of fills, and then just a cheap panel on the side there, and another small LED ring light.
It's great.
Pretty basic setup at the minute. I have lots of things to expand it out, but at the minute I'm in the shed with lots of the kids' toys and everything, which need to be moved out so I can turn this into an actual studio.
That's
Any
awesome.
Questions?
Well, we'll come back to questions. We're just going to go through all of them, and then we're going to come back and do a little round of questions and let them all stack up a little bit.
Cool.
Yeah, but really, really great. It's so funny because it feels very just like you just kind of, yours just feels like, well, I have a really good camera and I just kind of threw it together, and it looks good. Like it doesn't feel heavy, like, and I was like, oh, when you came in, you started very, most of us started much lower than you as far as the quality goes. So it just looked like a really great, natural look. And then, of course, as soon as you turn it around, you realize that there's a lot more work into it, as always. Good.
It's all pretty low budget as well. I think the whole thing was about $50.
And it totally works.
Apart from the camera.
Yeah, it totally works though. You know, that's the best part is it doesn't have to be a ton to make it work. It looks really good. Go ahead, Courtney.
All righty then. Let's see. Oops, wrong button. I'm jammed into the corner of my living room, as you all know, and I built this console that everything is sitting on. It's made out of plywood. Fenwick will treasure it, and everything is attached to it. It's on a rolling cart. And let me back up. I don't know if you can still hear me. There's 2 computers underneath. Actually, there's 3 because there's a B-Link down there too. That's there for emergency backup. There's the Stellar X2. I have my ATEM output feeding to a portable LCD monitor that's on an arm back there. My main monitor here. There's the Canon recommended by Carl. I have the backup Logitech there plugged in as a USB camera, and you can see it's backed into this printer right here. The new addition is the Neewer panel light here, and I tried to put it on a stand, but it wouldn't fit amongst all the gack over here where my phones and everything else, and Stream Deck and coffee and, you know, everything else is. So I have that so I can, to adjust the light, I can, let me see if I can do this. I can eclipse it. And when I'm done with it, I can just slide it in and face it against the printer to store it. And it goes off and looks very nice and neat in the corner without lighting up the rest of the living room. So
it's great. Very good.
That's the basic setup.
Yeah. Leo, what do you got?
Hi. So let me go to my other camera.
And again, if you're watching, we're going to put all of these together so people can just watch it later together, and then we'll do Q&A right afterwards. So just go ahead and throw questions in as you see them.
Okay, so that's the GH3 sitting on a tripod next to a NAN light up there. Out there is the world, but I've got curtains. I was actually thinking maybe changing these curtains to something that's heavier. The camera was tilted because I knocked it earlier with my feet. Coming back, and hopefully you can still hear me. So then you've got the Flow 8, the Stream Deck. I'm just running on my A10 Mini at the moment. Then I have 3 screens. There's an Easter egg for Hasmukh somewhere in there. And then as you've seen before, those are the 2 NAN lights. Those are the 2 NAN lights sitting on just on a coffee table that go onto that wall. Okay.
That's great. Very good. Next is Chris.
Fenwick. So here's the very dark look. I exposed it so you guys could see yourself. I thought that'd be fun. And but I also have the handheld. So going handheld. There's the main desk, and basically I work on the iMac. Second display is over there. It's a 5K, whatever. The vertical display is very handy. This is for the ATEM. Another computer going over here. This is what I record ISO audio tracks on. I just got this rack for all my hard drive storage, and it's horrible. We could do a second hour about that. The Mac Mini is back over here, and I just got these new pluggable devices that Mr. Carluccio recommended, and that's what's allowing me to have the HDMI as the user interface from the Mac Mini, and then I have all 4 additional displays, which Zoom ISO is going to allow me to be able to, and then a light up there, and through that window is a view of San Francisco.
It looks great. I can see the bridges from here.
Yeah, I knew you'd give me a hard time about that.
It's good. It's very good. Next to Bill.
Let me see if I can get the mutes all off, and let's start. I'm going to go handheld as well. So let me punch 3 up. And basically,
and Aaron, I think you're pinned on Chris instead of Bill.
That's okay. I'm good with that.
Okay,
It's
so
all about Chris.
that's what I'm seeing with a lot of video feedback. OC White Arm, the Neumann TLM103, that's my laptop I run things for. In the center is the teleprompter that I use. That's the big overhead display that helps me read when somebody puts text on there. Up there, you can see, I've talked a couple of times about having to, this is a very hard room and it's a square. So those are the Manfrotto auto poles that are holding diffusion up at the ceiling to kind of bounce that off. Behind me, you can see the blue screen that I use behind me. What else is there to look at? My global clocks back there. Whoops, it looks like we've lost it. That's basically it. I mean, you know, it looks like everybody else is set up. There's an ATEM Mini. Oh, wait a second. I should see if I can get the shot up because of the most important thing. Let me see if I can get my camera going again real quick. And it is, of course, the infamous, oh, that's a side shot, the infamous mic mute. Oops, where I can't even get it on the shot here. That's weird. It doesn't want to be on camera. It's strange. That little blue
it's hiding.
box. There it is. It's
there it is.
upside down. Ah. And yet, look at that. It's flipping every which way as I go. So anyway, there's a little blue box, which is my mic mute switch, which is what I'm hitting all so that I don't come through when I'm not supposed to come through, and why my muted button never goes on. There I am.
That's fantastic. It's quite a setup.
It was fun to build. It was really enjoyable to do that in here. I've been in here as a video editor for a long time, and adding video on so I could do as much as we do on office hours was an interesting mental exercise. I also have the voice booth outside the house, so there's lines that run from here to there, and it's been fun to be able to control audio from the voice booth into here through Final Cut and do live recording sessions. That's been one of the more interesting things that I didn't expect to do, but it's worked out really, really well.
Go ahead, Grant.
Okay. So this, sorry, boy, hang on a second. Here we go. This is in this little, I built a room within a room in my garage. And so this is one side of it. I'll just show you that this, I have a 16 multi-view, no, sorry, a 20 by 20 router that I run. And then I have a 12 multi-view that I run on a 55-inch screen. So you can see up here is one Zoom room with 3 outputs, and there's another Zoom room, and then QLab and an output on an M1, and then another Mac here, and a PC up here. That's this monitor down here. This connected to that, and so then I run. I'm now getting very clear about. I actually don't ever sit here. I always have another operator who comes in when we do shows from in here, and so then I'll have another operator that sits here and runs on the ATEM advanced panel. And as much as I have everything able to route, I'm now convinced that having positions for things actually works better. So having this as the multi-view of the ATEM Extreme, and then moving across and being able to control the Zoom rooms from these iPads, QLab from here for playback, just makes it really easy. This output here is what I send back into Zoom because it has timers and things on it. I'm actually using a TriCaster Mini to make that all happen. And then there's, of course, Mix Effect over here, which works great. So then if we turn around, which is where I'm sitting now, you can see a little bit more. So still that same multi-view up here, so I can see what's going on. And then a Behringer X-Touch that's controlling an X32. All of the gear is all out in another room, and including my MacBook 16-inch is actually outside here somewhere because it's so noisy. A couple of little web presenters here, and so and then I just have four screens that are running on this one, and little iMac sitting in the back corner. So you can actually see this is kind of the live view. It's not kind of as impressive because it's not all turned on. And then just behind me is it's just I used to just do the curtains, and now I've just got that. You can see the bottom of it now a little bit, and I've got a lighting. Lighting could do with a big upgrade in this room. It's really just cheap stuff that I've thrown in because I'm mostly working in here rather than just actually being on shows and things. So so that's kind of the rough setup.
That's great. Sorry, I'm muted. So, all right, let's go to Stuart.
Well, hello there. Let's see. Okay, so here's our regular setup. You can see where my camera's been sitting. Monitors that I'm looking at, and I split my display, so I've got whoever I'm talking to right there, so it's the same sort of eye line as my camera. This one is a repeat of the NDI monitor, so I can make sure that I'm not sending junk, and so that I never have the audio fail that some of you had to endure where it was just static at a lot of volume. If I try to bring up, okay. There's the little baby Behringer mixer. That feeds the microphone into vMix, and from vMix through NDI into Zoom. And there's the camera that I started off with when I first joined in office hours, and you can see one of the LED pin spots behind it. And of course, the big light over the top of everything that will just blind everybody. That's the main fill for the room. And of course, the most important details right there.
Tim Tam Cam.
Bingo. So let's see, the computer that I'm running off of is an old Lenovo i5. It's running vMix, and I make sure I don't run too many inputs into it. The laptop I'm using is a W541, which is a lovely laptop that I picked up secondhand that has a Quadro graphics card in it. So it handles the NDI really well because it's doing it in hardware. And it's also running the two monitors that I've got Discord on, and I've got the Mukana chat open so I can go through the questions, or I can put the panelist view on the other monitor as well. And of course, I've got the Canon in the background for display with its flash gun on it. And yeah, my desk is as messy as everybody else's, and I've probably spent less than anyone else.
Jim?
Yeah, so I get a wide shot here. I'm using a A10 Mini Extreme ISO. And then in front of me, I've also got a Behringer X-Touch, which controls a X32 rack that's in a server enclosure in another room. And then I have a AES50 run into here with an SD16. I have Dante coming back into my ear through a PM16 that's connected to that SD16. In front, I have a what do they call that? A teleprompter. Gosh, what's the people?
Prompter people.
Prompter people. That's it.
Yep.
24-inch, and then behind there's a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Pro 6K with a 35 millimeter 1.4L, and then you're seeing me through another same camera but with a 24-70. And then I have a advanced panel over there that's connected up to a Constellation that's in the rack with a bunch of other stuff like routers and HyperDeck minis and encoders and whatnot. Lighting, I've got an Aperture 120D Mark IIs for the key and what's left of my hair light. And then I have a fill, which is a Nova P300. And then there's also another one there that's just kicking some, my wife's favorite color up against a backdrop there. And smattering of Stream Decks and whatnot. Oh, and then I have that overhead camera, which essentially is just a 6400 mounted on an arm.
That's great. Very cool. Next is, I think the last one is John Preto.
Okay, Alex. So here is the setup. This is what I call Studio C. And this is a M1 Mac with 2 monitors here and here. And then I've got a Raspberry Pi sitting over here that drives the machine over here that I'm able to do a screen share from. And then I've got a ATEM Mini Extreme, a Stream Deck. The lights are iCAN DMX controlled, which run on Luminaire on this iPad right here. So I'm able to control the lights via my iPad. And then on the other side, my normal machine, but I also have an X32 rack sitting over there with Shure Axions, but I don't engage with that. And then this is the Heil PR40 into a Mackie sitting in a rack that's right behind me here that you can't see.
That's great. Let me show you mine. Let's see if I can pop this up here. My phone went to sleep. There we go. Mine's still, as always, somewhere in some mix of me tearing it apart and putting it back together. I thought I'd have it back together, but I don't. So let's see here. So this is obviously this is the ATEM here. This usually has an iPad, but I had taken it out. There's the whiteboard for my screen, or for my Telestrator back there. That's the old laptop that's been pushed in. Usually this has Mix Effect Pro, or I'm using Keynote on this that feeds into this. So you have an ISO Extreme. This is a Sound Devices Scorpio. It's probably the biggest underuse of a Scorpio in the history of Scorpios. And then over here is a big mess of the synthesizers with a Zonophone in the back, which I think is really kind of fun. I have a friend that lent me a Zonophone, which my daughter asks me when we're going to play sometime soon. Anyway, this is my Wacom tablet, which I draw on. Of course, this is the Mac Mini. These are the lights. So those are 100s, Nanlite 100Bs. These just got disconnected because I'm putting in the Matrix router that I don't have in yet, but I wired them up and they not working yet. This is a kind of a utility panel that I have over here that this really made a big difference for me. I know it looks like a mess down here, but these used to be like stacks of cables that are now, I can find them and quickly. So that's nice. Over top, you'll see that I just have, I have a lot of sound blankets to kind of tie all this together. The room is very roomy, so it needed that. There's my overhead light. And then I can go to green. Remember, there was green and gray in the past, but this is the Lazulite. And then down here, you can see that is the Nanlite. I think it's a Mix 60 or something like that I have there that's just doing the up, which is another piece of overkill that didn't need that much. It just happens to be one that props up nicely. Anyway, and that is, I think that's pretty much my little space here that I'm kind of working my way through. So, all right, now that we have shown you all of these, we're gonna go through. We've got a bunch of questions. So, Bill, what do we got? Bill?
I'm sorry. Somebody, I know Aaron muted me because I was doing extra noise. Douglas Carmichael's up first. What made you go, and this is for Carl, what made you go with the Jupiter X versus the Phantom 6? I know both of them have the same Zen Core engine, and the sequencing features of the Phantom seem very useful for controlling an entire system.
So the Jupiter is actually a synthesizer, where the Phantom is actually a workstation. I wouldn't mind a Phantom 8, which has actually got the piano. I already have a nice piano in the other room. But that's pretty much the only feature I'd want the Phantom for, because everything else that's in the Phantom, I have in everything else. As we said, I've got a Jupiter X, which has a lot of the synthesizer parts of the Phantom. The Phantom's a bit tricky to use for live performance of the synthesizer. As a workstation, you generally create the sounds and just play them. And they're usually good for bands who need to create the same sounds that they had on their albums That's what the Phantom is king for. This is more fun to just create sounds. So it's more analogous to an analog synthesizer.
Next question.
Next question comes from Douglas Carmichael. Oh, no, that's the one we just finished. Leo Mendel is up next, and Leo says, what is Stewart's biscuit per show run rate? Asking the big questions here.
Well, it depends. Normally, probably one every 12 minutes, which is why there's normally 2 stacks of 5 there. But on days like today, there was a vanilla slice on the plate that had to be eaten because it was in the fridge, So that was the first hour.
One every 12 minutes.
Important technical training.
I know. Yeah, that's how he stays awake. All right. Next question.
Pure sugar. Todd Rains of Allen, Texas is up next. And Todd says, Stewart, how do you control the background to be black with all that light?
I'm just going to go skills. To be honest, hang on, I'll grab the gimbal out again, which is a cheap gimbal that cost me $39 from Cash Converters, but it works backwards for what I'm used to. Okay, so if I swing this around, that's how bad the black. They all black from being.
You're breaking up a little bit, Stuart.
Yep. So we'll come back to the front camera. Yeah, so it's a cheap old blackout curtain, so it's meant to be and yeah, the internet's breaking up, which is weird because I'm not on Wi-Fi. But what I will do is stop this thing because it might be affecting the signal. Wow, it just dropped out. Everybody froze. Okay, it's just a matter of iris and setting the camera to be just the right sensitivity and what have you, and that's all it is. It's nothing special.
Let's go to the next question.
Jeremy Bowen in Portland, Oregon is up next with, what monitor is Aaron using for his teleprompter?
I am using the, I don't have a slide, but I have a box. It is the Lilliput Broadcast Monitor A11. It's a 10-inch. It has HDMI, SDI, VGA, loop outputs for everything. It's great. You can flip it in the menu. It was about $250, I think, maybe 300. I can't remember.
Yeah, we've bought a lot of Lilliputs over the last decade, and they started off pretty rough, but they have really gone upscale, from where they started.
I wouldn't color grade with it or anything, but it's great.
Yeah. Next question.
Leo Mendel from Pinner and here on the panel. Key question to all, what chairs is the panel folk using? Big question.
Go ahead, Carl.
I use a big drum stool. It keeps me sitting up straight, and it's micro adjustment as far as height because I can just do another revolution and it'll go up a tiny bit. So a drum stool.
Yeah, go ahead, Aaron.
I use a Herman Miller Mira 2.
Courtney.
Lazy Boy leather rocker recliner.
Nice. Leo.
Herman Miller, Aaron. I'm on.
Bill.
I'm on a steel case Leap that's been under my rear end for about 24 years now and has not failed me yet.
You go ahead, Todd.
Plus one on the Herman Miller Aeron chair.
Alan.
The cheapest one I could steal from the NHS, and it's slowly sinking. You'll notice that throughout the show, I keep doing that because the gas strut's gone. So
ahead,
any
John.
recommendations for one about $200 would be good.
Yeah, John.
+2 on the Arion chair.
Yeah. And I'm using a Herman Miller Mira 2 as well. So, which I went through a lot of chairs to. This gets into that what Chris often says is the buy once, cry once. With my mic arm, I went through a bunch of mic arms, and then I went through a bunch of chairs, and I started at 150, 200, 300, and I kept on having leg problems. I'm here all day, and so kept on having like leg and circulation problems, and finally was just like, okay, I have to spend money on a chair. So, and it's super comfy. I also have a little pad on it. I have a thing. It's very, but I got it just kind of decked out. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael's up, and this is also for Carl. Carl, could you replace the boutiques you have with the Zencore model expansions in a Phantom or the Jupiter?
So the boutiques are actually made on something called analog circuit behavior. Now, this is the most accurate modeling ever done of analog synths that Roland's done. They've actually rolled back because it was actually a little bit too taxing on the FPGAs, and they've now got analog behavior modeling, which is found in the Jupiter and Zencore, which is takes all the essence of analog circuit behavior, which is in the boutiques, but it gives you more polyphony. So they can actually, instead of just doing 4 notes, which each boutique does, it can actually do, 16, 32 notes. The boutiques are resale value has tripled since I've bought them. So I'm not going to probably sell them, but I can tell you right now, you can't sell a license key to the software, but I can sell mine and probably buy a brand new car.
Nice. Next question.
Miguel Lopez Waterman is up next with what monitor are you using with the TMP 500? That must be referring to a previous question.
I think he means the TMP 100, and that's the monitor I just showed.
Yep, the LiPo. Next question.
Jason Panks in Nashville, Tennessee says, Fenwick, what model is your front light?
Fenwick is missing, so we'll cancel that one and see when we get them back. Next question.
Okay, Douglas Carmichael's up next, and he says, what lights or light would you recommend for office studio use that won't heat the room up too much over a sustained period?
Go ahead, Bill.
All LED lights, the newer ones, are much better than the older ones. They are run cooler, and they have a decent color rendering index. So look for a modern LED light. All the other technologies, color balance, fluorescent, certainly tungsten, are basically heaters, and you're wasting a lot of electricity with them.
Yeah, go ahead, Stuart.
The giant panel that I showed before is an office roof light. It's meant to replace the fluoro tubes that are up in the rear, and they are $65, $70 from Bunnings, which is a hardware chain in Australia, and they do pretty close to 5,600. Even though it says 6,500, it's closer to 5,600.
Good, Alan.
I have literally the same thing as Stuart has, except mine is I can change the color temperature on. So they do them that you can change the color temperature on, and this was about $60. I think I paid £40 for it in the UK.
Courtney.
Yeah, the Newar, I think it's a 19-inch panel that I showed come in a 2-pack with stands for $100. So it's a good price, and they're adjustable in level, and it's mine sitting on about 10% now, so it's a lot of light output. It does not get very hot, and it's adjustable between 3,200 and 5,600 color temperature, continuously adjustable, so you can dial in the color temperature that you want, and it doesn't heat up the room at all.
Yeah, go ahead, Todd.
Plus one for that. I have the newer 660s, I believe. Is that what it is? They're up there, and they've served me pretty well. Same thing with a package from Amazon for not a ton of money. No digital controls, just dials, but white and yellow.
Yeah, and I use the Nanlite 100Bs. I have 3 of those. Is what I'm using. They don't. Oh, 4. Well, I have 168 over top of my head. They don't. Eventually, I'd like to move over to something that has DMX so that I can have a little more control over them. I have some of the mix panels. I like the larger surface area of these ones, and so that's why I've stuck with them. But I think that they're really good, and they're easy. I have them all set into one switch, so when I walk into the room, I just click it and it turns all the lights on. And so it's just a lot easier. Next question.
Next question comes to us from James Babbitt in San Diego. Jim Hankins, for your key lighting, what type of large reflector do you use?
Yeah, so I use the Aperture Light Dome 2, and I'll put a link in the Makana for it.
That's great. Next question.
Next one comes from Rajan Shandil, and Rajan asks us from Los Angeles, Chris Fenwick, what model is your vertical monitor, and do you have any recommendations for it?
I just got it for reading scripts. It has sort of turned into my user interface for digital switching. I'm currently trying out OBS and mixed results. It's like the cheapest Dell that I could find that had a swivel on it. I don't remember the model number. It's a G-Sync something. I don't know. It's not a very high res one. I think it's under, it's like 2K, 2K resolution or 2.5K. It's not even a 4K monitor. So it's okay. I wouldn't do any real work on it. It's a little soft for that.
Next question.
Next question comes to us from Jason Panks in Nashville, Tennessee. How did the panelists get that lovely blurred background look?
Go ahead, Stuart.
Okay, firstly, Carl and I are cheating because we're both using full frame sensor cameras. And we're also using reasonably fast lenses. Now, so everybody understands what a fast lens is. This is, I'll just see if I can get the iris so you can see it. This is a reasonably fast f1.4 lens, and if I crank the iris open, the bigger the opening gets, the more light you get in and the softer your background gets. And the bigger one of these you can get, the softer it'll get. That's a 1.4. I'm betting Carl probably has something faster that he wants to share with us.
Go ahead, Carl.
So I don't have my 1.2 hooked up because that means I need my nose to be in focus or my eyelash to be in focus. So I actually have a Nifty 50 set to f2, and that just gives me a little bit of move. I can move a little bit. The distance is a thing as well. So full frame, there's the three things. So the full frame sensor helps. A wide aperture lens, as Stuart said. So this is a 1.8, but I run at f2, and distance to my bookcase. So it's pretty much 10 feet to my bookcase. So that also helps throw out the bookcase, but it doesn't throw out too much. You can tell they're books. You can tell, they're not totally blown out. That's how I choose to like it, because I could put a 1.2 on here and it'd just be a blur at the background.
Leo?
So I'm also on 1.4, but I'm not on a full frame. The GH3 is a smaller frame. I am, as you can see, approximately 1.5 meters away from the camera, and the back wall is another 3 meters or two and a bit meters away. So it's that distance, and it's, as you said, as Stuart said, it's a faster lens, I believe is the right words.
Go ahead, Alan.
Yeah, I'm 3 foot, well, less than arms from my lens, and probably 5 foot from the back wall. But I'm on a wider lens. So I've got a 25, which is full frame equivalent of about 36 mil, and it's a 1.8. So, and that's wide open.
Yeah. Next question.
Ranjan Shandil is back again and asks, panel, what do you use for holding up multiple monitors?
There's really good ones, and then there's the ones that you can afford. There's 3 levels of them. I'm using the least expensive of them, actually. So the most expensive ones that I've used in the past are monitors in motion. They make these incredible multi-arm systems that are it just feels like it's floating. It's just really, really a beautiful experience, and it's really expensive. The second one is Amazon makes their own. They're about $250, $300. And they're the best ones that I've had in that sub $500 range. The monitor motions often are a little bit more. Those are I'm using like the Sidewinder and the whatever they have for the monitor motion for some of the systems. What I use in my home is a Huanio. It's Huanuo. And I'll see if I can pull it up. But they have 2 different versions. One with a center pole with arms coming out, and one that has both bases that go down. And if you want to stack the monitors, you use the center pole. If you want them side by side, you use the ones that stay, next to each other. And, for the price, I think they're $70 or $80. They're a little stiff, and you can't just kind of put them wherever you want them. You have to kind of negotiate with them to get them there. But for the price, they're really, really solid. They're relatively easy to build. I'll see if while someone else is answering, I'll see if I can, I can show you. This is the, my camera popped right up. So that's what they look like in action. So and that's usually I replace this with this is a Vivo, and it's got a Visa mount that has a kind of a adjustable thing for my iPad, and then there's the monitor, and both of these arms, they kind of move up and down. Go ahead, Stuart.
I'm just going to cover the cheap and nasty way. And I'm just going to fold this down a little bit, and hopefully I don't shut the computer down. But you can see a couple of speakers, a couple of monitors, a couple of wood blocks, and of course the Mac Mini, the coffee tin, the box, the sound recorder, and what have you to hold the camera up.
Go ahead, Courtney.
But it works.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, my main monitor is sitting on top of a Mac Mini which makes a lovely monitor stand, and everything else is on a the newer. Let me see. Yeah, one of these Magic Arms. My two other monitors are one tablet and the other monitor.
Go ahead, Grant.
Yeah, I just recently bought. So the ones that are over here, the two that are stacked, is super. It was $60 or something from an office supply company, and it doesn't have any adjustment on it, and it's actually what I prefer because I bought at the same time I bought the center one with an arm on it, and I realized it's all about positioning because really I wanted them to sit at the back of the table and really not have any movement. And so the double one, I wish I just got a couple of double ones because that's worked really nice, and just has VESA mounts on it that can slide up and down on that whole pole. So I've been super happy with them.
Go ahead, Alan.
So I've got a triple arm system, and I can see behind this. And this is the cheap Amazon special, about $30 or so, and that holds my two, and it works fine as long as you want everything on the same axis. There's no play basically up and down. All three are linked,
right?
So that's a bit of an issue.
Bill?
I've changed things around a good little bit, and I'm now using, whoops, why is my phone not doing this the right way? Let's see. I don't know if you can see the arm mount in there, but that Ulanzi word is actually on the bracket that holds one of the new LCD style monitors. The Ulanzi bracket is attached to a newer arm and to one of the micro clips. And one of the reasons that sometimes you want to go with a piece of furniture designed for video is these bridges that you see. You can see that I have a two-tiered desk, the regular surface of the desk and then a tier on top of it, and it makes it super convenient for clamping things like monitors because it's just super rigid and never moves around. So that's something I really enjoy having.
And Carl, real quick, we're going to start moving quickly.
So I actually have this monitor stand, but I don't use it as a monitor stand, but I would. So this is a Matthews monitor stand 2. It can hold up to 70 pounds. I'd probably put 3 of these because I'd probably put these in a studio space that I'd break down very fast. Yeah. So this makes more sense for me, and it can hold quite a lot of weight.
Go ahead, Todd.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I actually have these right here. Whoops, I'm sorry. I just need to put the browser in. There we go. I have these, and I'll show them to you. They are right here. You can see them kind of there in the back, and they hold these two monitors, which are really, really easily adjustable. And I've loved them. They're for $159. It hasn't done me badly at all.
That's great. Next question.
Moving on question-wise, Eric Price is up next, and Eric asks from Leavenworth, Kansas, for Leo, how do you manage the camera control on the GH3? One of the reasons I have my desk in the middle of the room is to be able to get behind my camera, and he has posted his setup in Discord.
So one of the things that Office Hours doesn't tell you is because I'm sitting down, I'm actually 6'2", so I can actually reach my camera, even though it's that far away, which is quite useful. But I have the camera on manual. I've set it up and I don't touch it. And so far, I haven't needed to adjust it at all, apart from when I go out of focus occasionally and people say you've been soft for about 3 days, and then I focus it back in again.
Next question.
Next question comes to us from Jason Panks in Nashville, and Jason says, Fenwick, what model is your front light? Oh, wait, that goes way back to first hour. I don't know how that.
Well, no, it was first hour.
He was here, and then
he was here, and he's gone.
He just disappears whenever somebody asks this question.
Yeah, exactly. All right, next, we have another one. We'll pull that one out again. Okay, sorry, Fenwick is gone. Next question.
James Babbitt, San Diego, is up next. Grant, what is your main camera, and what is your setup for your telestrator?
Do we lose Grant as well?
Yes.
Oof.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry about that. Next question.
Getting late in the day. Jason Panks in Nashville's back with John Preto. Could you elaborate on your Raspberry Pi and how and what it's used for again?
I have about 4 Raspberry Pis, and I use it for PlayOutB, but I also use this one to feed in a web browser back into the A10 Mini.
Next question.
Gabriel Ung from Malaysia. Have you measured how much power your setup pulls and how many of the items are on backup power?
Go ahead, Leo.
So I'll answer the second. Everything on mine is on backup power and UPS. I haven't measured it. I have measured my runtime on my UPS, but this is really we've gone on to this a little bit before. In the UK, we have very few power outages, so we can actually just literally run. We know that we've only got to worry about a brownout for a short period of time, or somebody. And if we do have an outage, it's likely that we're going to have an outage for a day, but it's very rare to have anything less.
Go ahead, Bill.
Thankfully, SDG&A has been very stable down here, but most everything that I'm using runs on battery power. I mean, the internet does not, but if the whole house blacks out, I'm just down, but I'm not saving anything, so I'd have to reboot. But the main core of this is my laptop, and of course, it's charging all the time. So if the power went out to it would remain on battery for quite a while.
My stuff's all on backup. I've got a 1500 VA APSs, APS or APC UPSs. There are different levels of control, so different levels of power draw. I don't know what the exact numbers are, but I know that my hard system will last about 20 minutes. My lights will last about a little less than 20 minutes, and my internet will last for 6 hours because all I have is the modem and the, and we have found that we lose power here all the time. This is Northern California. I mean, like if I get through a whole couple weeks without it, without losing power at some point, I'm pretty excited. So I've definitely leaned into lots of things. And what we have found is that the internet will, as long as my router, the routers and the modem are running, the internet keeps running. So that keeps the house going. And I can always switch over to laptop and everything else. So that one has a whole big battery just for these two little devices, just to hang on as long as possible. And I'm also investing in a Honda 2000, which will be here next week, just to make sure that I can run the fridge. That's now that we're getting into fire season, I'm assuming that I'll lose power for days, which is kind of the normal thing here in California because it's kind of like California. Next question.
Courtney Goodman in Hollywood is up next. Did I remember to show my switcher and mixer? I think I left them out. Courtney, how could you?
Courtney. I can't hear you, Courtney.
I had to click 5 times. I don't know what's wrong with my machine here. Anyway, let's see. Yeah, there it is. It's the ATEM Mini. It's sitting on a chair. There's so little room in my living room. It's sitting on a chair with a 3D printed stand to hold it above the mix pad, and it's all within easy reach because it's right below my coffee cup. Sorry, I left it out. I realized after I finished, I went, "Oh, did I show the ATEM? I don't think I did." Sorry.
There you go. Next question.
Samuel Nordvik in Norway watching us says, who uses BitFocus Companion on their office hours setup? Any show of hands, maybe?
There you go. Next question.
TJ Worrell of Minneapolis, Minnesota. John Preto, are you using Manfrotto or 8020 as your uprights and crossbar? They appear to be attached to the desk, not floor supported. Is that correct?
Great question. Yes, they're the Manfrotto auto pulse on both sides with the piece of truss between the two. And the auto pulls are fantastic.
There you go. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael says, Carl, I noticed that you had the lower keyboard on a table stand. I'm thinking of adding a Phantom 6 as my main control hub, and I'll be using the LCD extensively. Would I run the risk of neck or back issues if I didn't angle the keyboard at eye level?
So essentially with the bottom one, this is all on a stand, it's on a table. It's a 4-tier stand. So the bottom one's also the same as the other 3. You just can't see it because the couch is there. But essentially the bottom one is set to, so I can sit it. I've actually got a piano stool as well. That's the piano stool. The others are actual standing. So essentially if you take a look at posture for piano, that's where you should have your bottom one, and the rest are all, you're going to be standing when you're using the rest. That's what I find anyway.
Next question.
Stefan Fischer in Würzburg, Germany is up next with, what's the Canon camera that Carl recommended to someone? Canon camera to Carl, tongue twister.
Oh, he's working on the graphic.
It's
done.
So it's because I switched. So here we go. All on the same device. There we go.
There we go.
So Courtney is the one that's using this at the moment as well. I'm using just its bigger brother. That's all.
That's great. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael has our last one in the main questions group. Alex, you mentioned DMX controllable LED panels. The ETC FOSS 4 starts at about $4,935 US for the small HDR panel. Would there be any lower cost, reliable options?
Go ahead, Carl.
I'm just trying to find it. Here we go.
I mean, there's lots of them. You can get a controller. Yeah.
So it's Godox. So these are the Godox ones. I've got the measurements there as well. So these are all DMX.
Yeah. The DMX does seem to be 500 and above as far as per light. You know, that's kind of where you're going to it, John.
Yeah, so I use the ICANN lights. They're DMX controllable, but then finding a Ethernet to the NTEC controller from Ethernet to DMX is what I'm using.
Yeah, and there's lots of little controllers, but yeah, the lights themselves and even the NAND lights are in the 500 and above range that are DMX controllable. But there's lots of little just slider, basic faders that I can use to just bring things up and down. Right now, it's a little inconvenient because what I want is to be able to make sure I can adjust the lights while I'm sitting, so I can look at myself and play with the lights and not have to go do something. Yeah, go ahead, Stuart.
Yeah, just like to point out that there is USB-based DMX controllers available. The box that I've got my vMix computer sitting on is actually a computer case that I gutted and put 3 faders in there for running 800 watt lights on set.
Absolutely.
So you can actually do that from a computer. You don't need a control surface and what have you. And also for a recommended aperture or aputure, make really good lights, and I believe they've got a whole heap of that's got DMX and network controlled on the back of them.
Yep, absolutely. Leo?
All I was going to say is, although I know you want to go to DMX, I'm controlling this light in front of me, which is done on, that's the newer, and that's all controllable by my smartphone, and then the NanLink ones are controllable by the remote control that comes with them. So it is doable.
I am looking at doing it. I think Aperture has a bunch of their lights that are controllable from the iPhone app as well. So I am researching that. I am testing these as well. I was using the Hue lights in LA, but I am testing these as controller. This is the Aperture 7W or whatever, or B7Cs.
And Ken, who's not on here, I'm 90% sure that's what Ken has got, and as we've all seen, he controls all of that when he's sitting there.
And I know, so I'm going to be playing with those, and then I'm going to play with some other stuff and see where it goes. All right, well, that was fun. It was good. We learned a lot. I think doing this every month and a half, 2 months, something like that, where we all just kind of see where we've all settled, I think is really useful. I think it's useful for everyone watching. I think it's useful for us. We can trade notes. It was good. Great questions from our producers as always. Thanks for keeping the show going forward. Great. Thanks for the panel for showing everybody how you're putting it together. It's very, very interesting. And so tomorrow, remember Laura Thompson will be here. She's going to talk about accessibility. It's going to be great. Quick note, if you tap on questions in Mukana now, you can tap on the question and it'll open up and you can give it a heart. That was just added today. Not what that's going to eventually be useful for is for you to tell us how well we did at the answer. So I know it's the question there, but how well was this question answered? So use those hearts to give us feedback onto whether it was good or bad. It's just whether you liked it or not. Down the road, it'll make it easier for us to find answers, later. So, but right now we're just testing that system. For the panelists, we just ran into a bunch of things of getting people into the panel view, but we'll work on that and then we'll get that running. But that's starting to come together as well.